Just like the Roman Empire, Italian football saw an end to its reign. For years, Italian football was always more than relevant, with its best players being the best on the planet and its best teams frequently becoming the champions of Europe. But towards the end of the noughties, true Italian footballing excellence seemed to fade away. Since then, we have witnessed the fall of SerieA, a fall that has left it far behind the top Premier League and La Liga clubs, for example, more usually being compared to the French and German leagues, especially as the domestic performances of Juventus, PSG and Bayern Munich in their respective leagues saw unprecedented dominance and therefore a real lack in excitement or competition, and for a full decade too. This isn't something that's easy to manage, but it has definitely made the league seem less attractive and lose popularity. Serie A has really been missing the star players and clubs with which we have always associated it. Between 1991 and 2007, 10 out of 16 Ballon d'Or winners played in Serie A. Since the 2007 award, a grand total of 0 Ballon d'Or winners have done so whilst plying their trade in Italy. A clear signal that the magicians of world football have opted for Spain and England instead of Italy's once glamorous football scene. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich and PSG, as well as the top Premier League clubs, have left Serie A in the dust, certainly in terms of spending. Therefore, where Milan or Juventus were once the top dogs in the market, they now see themselves way down most top players' lists. Even low-level Premier League sides can pay wages that only Italian top 6 sides might be able to match. With that, there has been a real lack of quality across Italian football, with a lot of top talent leaving, and even less top talent arriving. Even in the 2000s, Italy was home to players like Shevchenko, Kaká, Ronaldinho, Nedved, Schneider and Zlatan, all at the peak of their powers. Funnily enough though, Zlatan might still be the biggest name in Serie A today, but now he's 41, a good example of where the Serie A is. Italy and Serie A's downfall came in the wake of their triumphant 2006 World Cup victory. Despite AC Milan and Inter's Champions League titles thereafter too, the league itself took a turn for the worse, during an era marred in scandal. Calciopoli was the name given to that particularly large scandal, and it rocked Italian football. Juventus, AC Milan, Fiorentina and Lazio were some clubs subject to serious allegations. It would appear that corruption and match fixing had hit an all-time high in Serie A. A large-scale investigation went into great detail and included transcripts from phone taps. Some figureheads in the Italian Football Federation were proven to have favourites, and refereeing officials were also culpable. They had been said to be favouring certain clubs. All of this came to the surface unintentionally, as Juventus were undergoing another investigation for alleged doping. Luciano Moggi was the Juventus general manager at the time. Despite maintaining that he was innocent, he ended up resigning from his role, as did the president and vice president of the Italian Football Association, which doesn't exactly suggest that they were innocent now, does it? There have been plenty of scandals and allegations, especially at lower levels of professional football in the past, but what emerged in Italy around 2006 was truly noteworthy. It was alleged that Moggi, as well as the Juventus chairman at the time, Antonio Giraudo, had locked refereeing officials in a room after Juventus lost a game 2-1 away at Regina in 2004. Apparently they verbally attacked the referee and his linesman because they hadn't been favourable enough towards Juventus during the game. Moggi was also said to have been actively pressuring the head of the UEFA Referee Commission. Evidence was taken from phone wiretaps and printed in major Italian papers. Moggi was banned from Italian football forever, and 5 clubs received major sanctions for their part played in the scandal. Most notably, they were involved in picking out their favourite referees to officiate their games. Juventus faced the toughest punishment of relegation to Serie B, an unthinkable medicine for the Italian giants. They were also stripped of their 2004-2005 title and docked 9 points, although originally it was going to be 30. Fiorentina and Lazio escaped their original punishments of also being sent down a league. In the end, they were docked 15 and 3 points respectively. However, both had qualified for European competition in the 06-07 season, and both had this achievement taken away from them. Fiorentina were denied entry to the 06-07 Champions League, and Lazio were denied entry to the 06-07 UEFA Cup. You can see how damaging this was for Serie A on so many levels. Historic clubs with great teams caught up in a huge scandal that saw them relegated, deducted points, or thrown out of Europe. Italian football's reputation plummeted, and these events had an obvious impact on the sport in Italy. At a time when Italy had become champions of the world, their domestic game was in turmoil and dropping down the list of Europe's most attractive leagues. European giants Juventus would play in the 06-07 Serie B. A dark time for the old lady. Legends like Nedved, Del Piero, Buffon and Chiellini stayed put, but players like Zlatan, Vieira, Thuram and Cannavaro all jumped ship. Juventus would win Serie B and be promoted straight back to Serie A, despite starting on -9 points. AC Milan didn't escape the madness either. They were docked 8 points in the league and 30 points from their 05-06 league table as well. Regina were docked 11 points and given a €100,000 fine. Meanwhile, despite finishing third, Inter had been awarded what many dubbed the cardboard Scudetto of 2006, after Milan's docked points took them below Inter despite finishing second. And of course, Juventus's relegation, Inter were crowned champions. They say there is no smoke without fire, but the case in Calciopoli was a lot more simple to figure out. The flames were visible from miles away, and everyone seemed to be involved in the corruption. This wasn't the end of it either. Problems of corruption in Italian football didn't cease, and in the 2011-12 season, Operation Last Bet was the title given to the latest scandal. It saw 16 people arrested on corruption charges, and players were allegedly drugged as part of the wider match-fixing scandal. In one particular game between Paganese and Cremonese, players had their drinks spiked before the game, and many fell ill as a result. Players, club management and bookmakers were all involved in Operation Last Bet, a well-organised system that set out to manipulate the results of football matches in Italy. Thousands or even hundreds of thousands worth of euros were placed in bets on the games in question. Even Antonio Conte was caught up in Operation Last Bet. Coaching ACNCN at the time, he was accused of knowing about match fixing and even received a 4-month ban. The scandal continued to impact Italy as a footballing nation, and they automatically lost bids to host tournaments or big games. This also stalled development in infrastructure. And it was notable too, as for the following decade Juventus were the only Italian team capable of pulling their weight in Europe. The other clubs offered very little, and the likes of the San Siro, once a fortress, became a playground for visiting clubs. One slight positive that emerged during a general fall in standards amongst the Italian elite was the rise of Atalanta. The Bergamo club appeared to be one of very few doing things right in the 2010s, and they became familiar faces in the Champions League, taking advantage of the plight of their rivals. In the 2019-20 season, they scored a crazy 100 plus goals and played dazzling attacking football. For the elite though, things didn't change much. The two Milan clubs also went through ownership takeovers in the 2010s, so between scandals, instability and overall declining standards in Italian football, it simply hasn't been a great time for the traditional greats. But maybe, just maybe, we are finally seeing some signs of change. In the next piece, we are going to explore if SerieA is indeed going to get back to its very best, and hopefully we will leave behind two of Italy's most barren and scandalous decades. After all, who doesn't want to see a return to the top for Serie A and Italian football? A bellowing San Siro and a boisterous tifosi. The iconic nature of Italia is something that should always be shining bright at Europe's top table, like historically it always did, until this recent fall from grace. In this series we have looked into history, the rise of Italian football, its moments of dominance, and its recent poor form. But tune in to the next video and the final part in our 3-video series to look forward instead of backwards. Last but not least, we will examine the current state of Italian football and check out where its place in the future of European football might be. Did you know about Operation Last Bet or Calciopoli before this video? Do you think Europe has missed out on the Italian giants? Let us know your thoughts on Italian football's crazy history in the comments below.